Every day, the sounds of the lumberjacks can be heard around the forests of Bankhead. There was always an order to the sounds. First, there was the soothing repetition of the chop, chop, chop of the lumberjacks' axes against the tall trees. There was then a gentle pause as the trees began to creak and sway. And then the stillness was suddenly interrupted when a lumberjack could be heard shouting, "Timber!" And the stillness of the lulling forest sounds abruptly broken by the crashing of the tree as it falls to the forest floor. Andy was hard at work at the lumber mill, and even with the constant buzzing of logs being sawn at the mill, something was out of place. The morning was quiet and still as the night. The birds were chirping uninterrupted by the sounds of the lumberjacks. No chop, chop, chopping, no timbers, and certainly no crashes of the tall trees falling to the forest floor. Have the lumberjacks stopped working, thought Andy? Maybe they are tired and have taken the day off. Whatever the reason, Andy knew something wasn't right. He went to the platform that stood at the edge of the mill and listened closely for any sign of the lumberjacks hard at work. As he listened, there was just the songs of the birds over the gentle breeze through the forest. "I'd better go have a look," Andy decided. He hopped aboard the shay locomotive in the train yard beside the mill, and off he went to investigate. Andy arrived to find Zeke in a huff. "The trees we've chopped down are stacking up and we can't take them to the mill. Nothing but problems, problems, problems," said Zeke in frustration. "The logging truck is broken down. The bulldozer has gotten a load of logs stuck between two trees, and the oxen refuse to work. They just laze around and eat shrubs and grass all day. How are we supposed to get all of these trees to the lumber mill?" questioned Zeke. "And on top of it all, we keep losing some of our trees down the river. Swoosh, 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 and then lost over the waterfall. I don't know what we are going to do. If only we had a waterfall that ran straight to the log mill," exclaimed Zeke. Andy scratched his head. "Oh my, Zeke. Maybe if we put our heads together, we can figure something out. We sure need those trees. There are some new houses being built on the edge of town, and they are counting on us to have them the lumber by the end of the week. You keep chopping down those trees. One way or another, we will solve this problem." That night, Andy walked through Bankhead, lost deep in thought about how to solve the problem of getting the trees to the lumber mill. He stopped at the lake just as he heard the clickety-clack of a train rolling by. The lake was the place where Andy could do his best thinking. He found some old sticks and threw them into the river. Sploosh! Then he watched them until they fell over the small waterfall. Just like Zeke said, if only the trees had a waterfall, he thought. Then the trees could get to the lumber mill in no time at all. Then Andy had an idea. "A waterfall indeed," he muttered to himself. "I think that just might work," he thought. He rushed home with excitement to get to work on his plan. He worked for hours drawing out his idea. He hardly slept all night, full of excitement to see his friend Zeke in the morning and to show him the plan. "Now that's the craziest idea I've ever seen," said Zeke in astonishment when he saw Andy's plan. "Well, it really was your idea," said Andy. "My idea," said Zeke. "Yes," said Andy. "You said, if only we had a waterfall straight to the lumber mill." "Well, here you go. A waterfall straight to the lumber mill it is. It's called a log flume." Andy and his fellow mill workers loaded a train with all of the lumber needed to build the log flume and headed over to lend a hand to the lumberjacks in its construction. Zeke and his lumberjacks had started digging a trench to divert the water from the river to push the logs down the log flume. The mill workers and lumberjacks worked steadily together to build the great wooden structure. They carefully aligned their wooden slipway along the path through the forest as it had been mapped out. They all let out a great cheer, "Hooray!" when the last section of the log flume was put into place. "I think it's ready to go," said Zeke to Andy. "All we need now is some water to get this slide started," agreed Andy. Zeke gave the signal to the lumberjacks to open the dam they had made to divert the river down its new slide and allowed the water to rush through its wooden channels. Then the bulldozer and the crane dropped logs into the river with a splash so they could ride the Flume, gliding down the watery slide and moving effortlessly towards the lumber mill. "It works!" exclaimed Zeke. "That's what happens when friends work together to solve a problem," said Andy. They celebrated with a grand opening of the log flume so that all of the residents of Bankhead could come and see the marvelous new flume that the loggers and mill workers had built together. With great excitement, the townsfolk boarded a train and made their way out to the forest to see the newly built log flume. The townsfolk of Bankhead were amazed at what had been accomplished by the lumberjacks and mill workers. It made them all recognize that great things can be accomplished when people put their heads together to come up with a solution. They celebrated, knowing that everyone in Bankhead benefits when they work side by side to achieve a common goal.